Adrian Griffin done in Milwaukee after just 43 games. Plus, Terry Rozier, now a member of the Miami Heat. And have we reached the absolute bottom, the worst of NBA officiating? It's all right now on the Locked On NBA podcast.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On NBA podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are here for you every Wednesday. That's us, me, John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast on Twitter at John_Karalis.
And I'm Jake, 153 points in a game, Madison here, host of the Locked On Pelicans on Twitter at NOLA Jake. That was fun.
What a night in New Orleans. I mean,
what are 2 days in the NBA?
Look, this 24-hour stretch has been one of the best 24 hours, including everything, just everything. Partially because I saw a last-minute report that I've never seen before. 10 incorrect calls. That's got to be a record. That's third segment. We'll play our game of real or fake there. We had points galore, including a game in which Terry Rozier participated and won, spoiling Karl Anthony Towns' 62-point effort in Minnesota. Now he goes to Miami to a good team. We'll talk about that in the second segment. We're going to start with a team that that has had trouble keeping points off the board at all. One of the worst defensive teams in the league. So if you're looking to place a bet on the over and you want to do it on FanDuel, do it during a Bucks game. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Any $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Jake, 43 games. That's it. That's all. Hope you took the under on games coached by Adrian Griffin, because he is now done in Milwaukee. I know they were struggling. I've seen some of those struggles up close, but I wasn't expecting him to get fired before the All-Star break.
So look, it's a little surprising, right? As you said, before the All-Star break, like I don't know if anyone's done it yet. I know some people were asking about it on social media and things like this is the fewest games like coached, right? Like this is like one of those things where it's like the earliest firing, the fewest games to try and get some things right. And it's surprising because one of the timing of it, right? It's early, but also they're second in the East, you know, like it's not like they're like flailing here. They're 30-13. They're second in the East, and they have the second best offense in the league right now. This is a team that by all accounts you would call good. You would call title contenders. But then you see how things have just played out with them this season, and the defense basically falling off a cliff for them, 21st in the league, right? That's also maybe because they traded Drew Holiday away. You've seen Giannis maybe not really be bought in to Adrian Griffin and what he was doing, you know, taking the clipboard, other things like that. When you kind of look at all of this, right? Terry Stotts, who they had hired to be an assistant coach at the beginning of the year, like quitting before the season even started, before even preseason was done. Like this all kind of had signs that were like just big red flags here. Not pink flags, not beige flags, not yellow flags, like glaring red flags.
Big, nice cherry red.
Yeah. So like when you see that, you're like, okay, yeah. And like, it's an interesting preemptive move, right? Like they are going to be a good regular season team, but they're very worried about how Adrian Griffin as a first-time head coach is going to handle the playoffs, right? And you don't want to lose because of a coaching mistake or lack of adjustments on all of that. So that's why they're doing this. That leads to one of the most ironic things I could imagine, right? The reports are they're going to hire Doc Rivers. That's who their number one person is, who literally owns the most choke jobs in NBA history as a head coach. Like, I get why you're going for him because he's like safe, right? It's like the safest, most consistent, smart choice in that sense that you could get. But that just speaks to how bad things were, that's what you need.
Right. So it's funny. So when Milwaukee was in Boston back at the end of November, right around Thanksgiving, I watched Giannis start to wave off a substitution. which I think that was a big thing that night in the NBA. Now I was in the arena for that. I'm watching Bobby Portis sitting at the table, Giannis waving him off, and literally Adrian Griffin having to push Bobby Portis onto the floor because he didn't know what the hell to do when the horn sounded to sub in. And Giannis sitting there having a heated discussion with the coach and then subbing right back in for like Brooke Lopez. That type of stuff didn't seem like you don't realize that that's a symptom of something, right? It's like the cough from the king in Braveheart. It seems innocuous at the beginning, but it's foreshadowing his impending doom. Once a team loses confidence, loses faith in the coach, he's got to go. I can't believe that it happened so quickly, but it did. And look, to your point, turning to Doc Rivers, is that going to be the answer? No, but it'll stabilize the patient, right? Like, this is how I've been putting it. You bring them into the ER, you stop the bleeding, you get the vitals kind of set, and then you figure things out. They have no choice. If the players aren't on board, you have no choice. And the only options are there are very few, right? You're not going to bring back Mike Budenholzer. It begs
you should, but you're not going to. If
you're turning to Doc Rivers now, then why couldn't you have just kept Budenholzer from the beginning? But whatever. Sometimes relationships end, and that ended.
What's so interesting about that part that you're talking about with Giannis too is like the reports were that like he vouched for Adrian Griffin and this was who he wanted hired. So the second he's like, yep, nope, I'm over this. Like you have to make that move.
I think losing Stotts was a big deal because now you now have Damian Lillard learning a whole new thing in a new city right before the season starts. You have a new coach learning to be a head coach right before, heading into this season. And I didn't think Griffin was going to have so many problems. He's been in the league forever. He's been on a million teams. He's seen a million different systems. He's been an assistant coach for a long time. He's seen what's worked, what hasn't. He's coached Giannis. He's coached other stars. Like, he's been around. This isn't completely new, but when you hear that at the in-season tournament, they called in Doc Rivers to give him advice. This is reporting from The Athletic, that they set up a meeting with Doc Rivers, then a broadcaster, to give him advice and guidance. Well, that's it. I bet you at that point, Adrian Griffin was like, I'm done. How can you have the team bring in this guy, like, hey, sit down with this guy and learn something, will you? That's something that is mind-blowing to me. Bringing Doc in, it's not going to do anything besides maybe get some guys to like buy in again and get them kind of like settled. But it's not going to make Malik Beasley play defense. It's not going to make Damian Lillard play defense. What's Doc going to do?
He's Applebee's, right? Like, that's what this is. It's just like the safest thing that you could do, right? Like, it's not going to be an amazing meal. You're not going to go have a bad meal there, certainly, right? There's things that like would elevate it, but they're not going to do that. That's what it is, right? It's like
Applebee's is Applebee's, like the most backhanded.
Yeah,
that's like, I don't know, man.
It's not a compliment. Like, it's not a bad thing.
You're Applebee's. I might fight you. That might be one of the worst. Like, damn,
that's where I'll take you when you're here in New Orleans next month.
Oh my God.
No, it's like, it's a safe choice, right? Like, that'll get them through the regular season, and then they're going to choke in the playoffs. And like, that's going to be that. And we're going to laugh about this, but it was just a mess. And like, as you said, they're just trying to stabilize, which is like a 30-13 team trying to stabilize. What in the world is going on there?
Well, look, you look at Boston ahead of you, and I know they just demolished Boston, but that was, I think everybody understood, like, scheduling was kind of a factor in all of that. You look at Boston ahead of you, they are top 5 in both offense and defense, and they can run with you and also stop you. And that's something that I think the Bucks are looking at, and like other teams are looking at, like the Miami Heat are looking at Boston and saying, you got to load up. You can't just go with what you have. And so Milwaukee makes their move to say, if we're going to make this, if we're going to be competitive, we got to do this, because Dame isn't getting any younger. So you have to do something now. Boston is making their move now. Boston is as good as they are right now. Miami says, we need more scoring, so they get Terry Rozier now. Let's talk about the Terry Rozier trade in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Hungry Roots. Hungry Roots, the easiest way to get fresh, high-quality food delivered to your door. They deliver healthy groceries, simple recipes, all in one place. You go to Hungry Root, you take a fun, short quiz. They get to know you, your goals, what you like to eat, the flavors, the appliances you like to use. And they keep your needs and preferences top of mind to start building your cart with delicious recipes and the groceries that you need. They'll recommend the groceries and the recipes for your taste. You can take their suggestions or just choose whatever you want. They've got fresh produce, high-quality meat and seafood, pantry staples, healthy snacks, sweets, and much more. Hungry Root goes beyond your weekly grocery haul with thousands of easy recipes that actually put your groceries to good use before they're forgotten in the back of the fridge. I hate that. They say the food's got to be good, it's got to taste good, be quick to make, and contain certain whole, trusted ingredients. So spend less time meal planning, shopping, cooking, enjoy healthy food that you'll actually love with Hungry Root. Go to hungryroot.com/lockedon. Locked On NBA listeners, you get 40% off your first delivery. How about this? Free veggies for life. Go to hungryroot.com/lockedon, 40% off your first delivery, and you get free veggies. It's hungryroot.com/lockedon. Don't forget to use that link because they know we sent you. Today's show also brought to you by eBay. eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24 streaming channel. Right now, it's on all the time, anytime you want to go check it out. Turn it on, sports talk the way you want it, all the biggest stories around, and just all day long on YouTube. It's a fun little place to go for the big sports stories. Like maybe Terry Rozier going to the Miami Heat. Jake, Terry Rozier. They give up Kyrie Irving. I mean, I'm not Kyrie Irving. Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry and protected 2017 first round pick. They get Terry Rozier, so they have to pay to get off of Kyle Lowry. And, they needed scoring punch. They get scoring punch. They get a decent defender. He's not a big player. He's only 6'1", so that doesn't address any size issues that they might have. But overall, look, they fill the need. I kind of compare this to the Pacers getting Pascal Siakam. It's a nice move. It fits a need. Doesn't put them into the top of the East, but it solidifies them as a competitor, one of the top competitors for that fourth seed.
Yeah, look, I like it for him. I don't think it's like the type of move where you're like, oh, now they're a true title contender. But as you said, it kind of addresses a couple of things that they need, right? He's also been a good three-point shooter this season on volume. I think they want to up their three-point attempt numbers too. And when you look at who he's replacing in Kyle Lowry, who's been kind of a disaster this year, like it's very clearly an upgrade just based off of that alone. So for those reasons, I like it for them,
Yeah,
it's definitely a short-term move though, right? When you look at how much he's owed and giving up that first round pick, it might make it tougher for the Miami Heat to go star hunting in the future, which is what they often like to do. So that maybe worries me a little bit for them. But this is a guy that, on a high usage, doesn't turn the ball over, hits threes, can give them scoring, can get downhill, is pretty tough. Good for the Miami Heat on this move.
Sure, it's a nice fit. Hey, that salary, which is $25 million, he's under contract, obviously, for the rest of this year, and then 2 more years after that, $25 million or so, and that's a very tradable salary. That after this season, you can, if you want to go star hunting, that's a great number to have in tradable for you. But for now, the scoring is going to be an important element to what Miami is looking for. Look, with Spoelstra and Heat culture and all of that stuff, you can take all of the stuff that we're saying and multiply it by 25%, because Miami always seems to get that much more out of a deal. So whatever we're thinking, whatever you're thinking when you're watching or listening, you can probably say Rozier is going to fit in maybe a little bit better than we think. Maybe he's going to score a little bit better than we think. I think Rozier, he's going to give you points. He's inefficient with his points. And, that's going to be a little bit of an issue for a team like Miami that's not going to be run and gun. They're going to slow it down, and you need efficient scoring. So if he can up his efficiency as part of this, then that's going to be an even better move. But regardless, I think overall, if you're grading trades like this, I think it's a solid A-, B+ move for Miami. And on the other side, though, the question is his streakiness, is the inefficiency, is that going to be corrected enough to kind of give Miami exactly what they're looking for?
I do think it will, right? He's got a pretty high usage rate. He's setting a career high in points per game right now, but he's not going to be playing that kind of role here on this team. So I wonder if going to the Miami Heat, kind of taking a little bit of a back seat, if there's kind of some growth from him as a player there, you'll see that efficiency ratchet up a little bit. And I think there's definitely potential for that, especially with Heat culture being a very real thing, right? And he's playing, with some guys, the caliber of players that he hasn't played with in a while. I wonder if, he's not great defensively, but when you have Bam Adebayo back there defensively kind of anchoring you, it kind of makes up for that sort of shortcoming of him too. So I don't know. I really do like the fit again. And I think with him, not having the ball in his hands as much, right? You're going to see the points per game numbers go down. You'll see the assist numbers go down. Can he still launch threes? I'm sure he's going to be quite happy in that role. And if he does that, right, that's going to work for him. That should mean the efficiency gets better, I think.
Well, look, he's never been at league average effective field goal percentage. So he's always been below that. So he is a volume guy. Yeah. I would say that he can be a capable defender, and if he buys into what Miami is doing, then he can, I think that might be the place where he really improves the most or kind of benefits the most from what Miami is doing. That's, creative defensive schemes, creative zones and stuff like that Spoelstra is known for. And look, you get traded to Miami, you've got to buy in, and you've got to follow the lead of Jimmy Butler. You got to follow the lead of Bam Adebayo, who's been there and is the cornerstone, and you follow the lead of Erik Spoelstra. Going in that you can't rock that boat. You can't shake what Miami does, because no one, whatever your opinion is of the team, whatever fan of a rival you might be, you cannot, their front office, their structure, that culture is kind of unassailable. So Rozier he has no choice but to kind of fall in line. Now we'll see what that brings them. He went to Charlotte, and it didn't work. It didn't really work there. They only were a winning team once. They never made the playoffs, and it's not all his fault, but they kind of were hoping that he would be one of the guys that would lead them out of that, and he wasn't. So if he kind of accepts a role here to be less of a volume guy and a little bit more on the efficient side, then I think Miami really hits a home run here. But again, I do question how far that will take them. And that I think that's where we get into the myth of the Miami Heat and like what the run they made last year versus the reality of basketball. And you say, yeah, this is nice, but
it's
beyond.
It's like keeping up with the Joneses of like the mid tier there, right? Like the Knicks made a move for Anunoby. You had Indiana go for Siakam. So it's like if Miami wanted to kind of stay in there, like they had to do something. And this is probably the move that presented itself. So they jumped on it.
That's it. That's the best way to put it. Hey, let's run down some of the games that happened. There were games in the NBA. Knicks 108-103 over the Nets, 30 apiece for Brunson and Randall, 10-3 run over the final 2 minutes to come back there. Mikal Bridges had 36 for the Nets. He was on fire there. Denver 114-109 over Indiana. Jokic casual with the game-winning shot, 31-13-10, just another triple-double for Jokic. He only shot 13 of 19. 31 also for Murray. No Halliburton still for the Indiana Pacers. The New Orleans Pelicans, as we said at the top of the show, 153 points. Jake, how did the Pelicans score 153 points in this game?
Helps when you go 23 for 46, 50% from three in this one. CJ McCollum made 9 threes himself. He had 33 points in this. Zion with 11 assists. Herb Jones, who was just in some trade rumors, also went off. Perfect 4-4 from three in this one. It's a franchise record for the Pelicans. CJ McCollum's having a very quiet, good year, kind of reinventing the way he's playing. I actually talk about that in the first segment of Locked On Pelicans today.
Oh, that's a tease. All right, we'll get to some of the other games because they're relevant to our next segment. Officiating. Have we hit rock bottom with the officials? We'll talk about that in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and it's such for a reason. Because you, new user, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, and place a $5 wager on anything. That's it. Win or lose, doesn't matter. You just got to bet $5 on something when you're new to FanDuel, and they'll give you $150 in bonus bets. Who doesn't want $150 in bonus bets, win or lose? When you get that, and hey, maybe you win your $5 bet, then you can hop on that app and cruise through like the Explore tab. That's new. And you can find bets, popular bets that people are making there. You can find parlays in the Parlay Hub. You can play some same game parlays, stack some bets, maybe get a little bit bigger return if you can hit those. Plenty of ways to play at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/locked on. That's where you got to go to get this deal. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. And I always encourage you to use the tools that FanDuel has. These are great tools because they want you to have fun. They don't want you to get yourself into trouble. Set your limits, set your budget, and you can have fun because you'll be gambling responsibly. All right, Jake, the Portland Trailblazers lost a tough game in Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 33 points. Jalen Williams hit a game winner, his 19th point to beat the Blazers 111-109. We won't talk about DeAndre Ayton for Portland having 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting. Although we probably should if it was a different night in the NBA, if we didn't have a million crazy things happening. DeAndre Ayton being DeAndre Ayton is probably a big topic. But no, we're going to talk about the timeout drama at the end with Malcolm Brogdon getting double teamed, Chauncey Billups clearly yelling timeout, but not signaling timeout. He didn't signal the timeout, which I think is a key element here. He yelled for timeout. No call. People are complaining like crazy online. There was, and that ended up 2 technicals and ejection. That was a big reason for Portland losing this game. Which, hey, Portland lost the game. Congratulations. Like, you should be losing games. This comes on the heels of 10 incorrect calls, Jake, in the Charlotte, Minnesota game, 6 of which favored Charlotte in the last 2 minutes. 6. And that was the game that they blew when Karl Anthony Towns was having a monster game. So let's play our favorite game.
I am telling you right now that is not real.
Is this real or fake? Just ask John and Jake.
Jake, real or fake? We have hit the bottom, the absolute bottom of officiating in the NBA.
It's real, not because of this game in particular, just in general. The officiating has been bad this year. You're seeing everyone complain about it. When everyone's on the same page with this, that probably leads to something. The last 2-minute report, and look, I like the NBA's attempt at transparency with this, doesn't really help with this necessarily, to be perfectly honest. That's probably something that should kind of stay behind closed doors. But yes, it's funny that you asked this question because, look, as a network, right, Locked On does things to attract like advertisers and other things. We hear FanDuel, we hear others here, right? We have this like sizzle reel that we've put together as a network to like present to like sponsors. And there's literally a clip of me screaming. And I think it was probably on Locked On NBA. And it's like, the NBA has an officiating problem. So if you want to advertise on Locked On, that's the type of stuff that you get, right? So yeah, I got to be consistent
Warby
myself
Parker,
here.
come advertise with us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I've been saying this for a while. I don't think it's officiated well at all. I don't know if it could be better. Probably could. But yeah, we're definitely getting towards the bottom of the barrel. Again, not because of this game. Chauncey Billups should have signaled for the timeout. I don't know if that really would have changed things. Brogdon probably should have called one himself. Would have probably been a good idea too. He had the ball, do something there. He's kind of being harassed by defenders, but he didn't do any favors with that either. So like, it's not this. It's things like the last 2-minute reports with 10 incorrect calls in the final 2 minutes of a close game that led to kind of like not serious fallout, I guess, but like kind of serious fallout for the Timberwolves, right? That whole press conference with Finch after the game kind of tearing his team apart, right? Like that's different if they win the game, you know, like who knows what that means long term. So yeah, absolutely. The officiating is rock bottom. It's going to continue to be rock bottom. It's been rock bottom for a while. True. Real, whatever it is they say here.
Okay. I'm going to say fake because as bad as it's been, it can get worse. It can get worse. And so I'm not going to say it's great, but I'm not going to say it's at its absolute bottom because I still think that when you go back and look at a lot of the things that happen, in the heat of the moment, there's a lot of crying and yelling and all of that stuff. And a lot of times you go back and look and you go, oh, wait, that wasn't a foul, or that was a foul, whatever the opposite of what happened. So I'm giving the officials just a little bit of benefit here because, first of all, it's very difficult. And I don't think they're put in the right position. I've been saying for years, many, many years, that they should add a fourth official.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I think a fourth official, and you have everybody in like a diamond pattern, and one guy is like a little bit behind. And this way, that back official can get back in transition and have a good view. I'm tired of these transition calls that a ref is just, there's yet no one's going to be fast enough to chase down Russell Westbrook, you know, who's still like the fastest. How are you going to chase behind that guy and see if he got fouled? No. So, but to have a fourth set, a fourth official, a fourth set of eyes to kind of see things, I think you can position that person to get a better sense. And something like this timeout can be recognized. You have another person. I think one of the reasons specifically with this timeout, I do think Brogdon was trying to call timeout. He just had his back to every official because everybody was in the front court and no one was behind. And he just happened to got spun around. And it's OKC. It's crazy. It's loud. It's manic. But I do think that this season has been one of the worst officiated seasons. There's no doubt about that. So go ahead.
So breaking news, according to Woj, Portland is filing a protest with the league office to challenge the results of the 111-109 loss to Oklahoma City Tuesday. Portland contends Chauncey Billups was clearly calling timeout prior to the officials whistling a Blazer double dribble with 15.6 seconds left. So they think he didn't need to call it, but also for like a tanking team, that's like risking some money there because they have to like give a like what $100,000 deposit or something like that to the league just to protest that one here. So for a tanking team that doesn't want to win games, that's kind of interesting.
Here's the pool report, which finally came out from Bill Kennedy, who explained why the referee in the slot position was refereeing the double team that was right in front of him, which makes it difficult for number one to hear and number two to see a coach request a timeout behind him. He is taught to referee the play until completion, which a double dribble happens, and he correctly calls the double dribble, and then pursuant to that, the technical fouls come forward. So 2 techs there for Chauncey Billups. That is the exact argument for the 4th official. Get somebody behind the play to see it. But anyway, I think the league needs to just take a serious look at the officiating, because the last thing you want is when things like this happen, and everybody's talking about the league is in bed with gambling, and I don't think that that's something that leads to like being around gambling doesn't lead to corruption. If people want to be corrupt, you can do it without people having gambling apps on their phones. But you don't want this perception. You don't want this negative perception to persist. You need to make the officiating better, whether it's better training, better seasoning, like making sure that the veteran officials stick around longer. Like I said, adding that 4th official. Something has to happen here, because you can't have Mike Brown having like props. You can't have the Darko Rajakovic rant. Like all of this is happening for a reason. Guys are getting ejected like crazy right now. So the officiating, while I will give them more credit than some people, it is broken to a point, and it definitely needs to be fixed.
The final thing I'll say on this is we shouldn't know some of these refs like we do, or as many refs as we do. We shouldn't know their names. Like they shouldn't have Wikipedia pages, which a bunch of them do. And it's like what are we doing here when that's the case?
Stats on who, like which ref, which team wins when which ref is reffing. Like that should not be a thing.
But it is.
Well, this podcast was a thing. Congratulations to the Clippers, who won their game against the Lakers as we wrap this up. So that's the night in the NBA. Those are the big stories in the NBA. And that's the Locked On NBA podcast. So every Wednesday, it's us. I'm John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. Find me on Twitter at John_Karalis.
And I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast, on Twitter at NolaJake.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That way you get this show dropped directly to your device. Rotating hosts all week long. It's a great show with all these different hosts. Tomorrow, Nick Angstead, Pat the Designer. It's a great time. I love the way they do their show as well. If you're an everydayer, if you're with us every Monday through Friday, I would love it if you shared the podcast, spread the word, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Watch this show. It's the Locked On NBA podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.